Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Alan Robson with you. Not alone. Tonight we got a few helpful faces. First of all, of course, the regular crew behind the camera. We've got Hollywood McShane. We have the legend who is Kenny D. And we have the producer with the mostest. We have Gano making a fabulous return. Was my producer for what felt like forever, but wasn't long enough, frankly. And Gano is going to join us because she's helped us get our venue today, and our venue is amazing. Now, first of all, I have to point at this river. You ever seen this river before? I'm not even sure we can see it now properly, can we? It's so pitch black. We're on an area of the River Tyne. This is the big river, of course. We're on an area of the River Tyne that used to be known as Hawk Bill. And bill hooks are something that's been used on some of the ships and some of the boats on the River Tyne for the longest. Bill hooks are slightly and strangely curved because the River Tyne strangely curves at this point. And it ended up with this area being called Bill Quay on the back of it. We're going to spend some time in a pub that we hear has things happening in there. We're going to find out exactly what. I know at least 3 stories about it. Excellent. But I have to tell you, all of the... Oh, did you hear that? Yeah. Did you hear that? Voices. And it came from over there. I'm still getting voices?
Yeah.
From there? Mm-hmm. That's a cool start. We got a witchy wood, and yet a lot of the wood here, a lot of the woodland, and I think we come and show them this, Tony, just before we go, because we criticise people who do graffiti a lot, because quite often they're spoiling wonderful places. But you've got to give them credit when they're prepared to go down to cliffs like this. Light this up, Kenny, please. I know, and it's... If I die in the Tyne, though, that would be the perfect end for me, really, wouldn't it? So there you go. Look at this. Just looks like any cliff or any crag along a beach, really, isn't it? And
does, yeah.
And yet even the graffiti crew, we're going to show you some amazing graffiti on the way back. But all of this whole area, and if you see, that whole area there is concreted. There's buildings, and there's buildings the full length of the riverside. And the reason for that, there used to be a shipyard here, and it was called Wood Spinner, and the whole shipyard area, Woods, they nicknamed it at the time, they built ship after ship after ship after ship, hundreds of ships they built along this area. This was the last shipyard to close on the south of the Tyne. So we're talking proper history here. But I want to take you back to World War I, Kenny. Right. They're pumping out ships left, right and centre. And it's 1915. They're desperately needing as many ships as possible to fight with Germany at the time. The First World War, where it was a massacre was happening. And here on the Tyne, they were building an insect-class gunboat called the HMS Scarab. And it ended up fighting in the First World War and the Second World War. It was a gunboat, and they were building it here. And do you know what stopped them? Do you think bombing? No. Sabotage?
No.
Kind of.
Was it?
But it was sabotage by a 13-year-old boy called Albie Buchanan. Buchanan is not right. McCallum.
Right.
Albie McCallum. Now, Albie McCallum, a 13-year-old Raji, just a young kid. It's during the war. His dad's away fighting. His mother doesn't have any control. Albie would come down to the shipyard, climb over the fence, and steal anything he could steal. He stole people's baits, he stole rivets, he stole screws, he pinched metal and flex, anything he could get any money from, which was everything. He took everything. You know, people's dinners that they'd left in their lockers, he took all kinds. And on one occasion, he was a one boy crime wave, 13-year-old. And there's no nice way of putting it, he was a get. He was an unpleasant, people in the area hated him, disliked him. He lived in Hebburn, but came down from Hebburn to Quay on the rob, because a lot of them don't like pooing in their own backyard. Now, Albie saw they were building the scarab and it was getting near the end. So the painters were in, there was scaffolding up, they were painting and putting in the last rivets. Albie came in and he took some rivets from the scaffolding. 8 men went up to the top of the scaffolding. When the 9th man went up to the top, all the rivets that he took off of the scaffolding collapsed and all the scaffolding fell. 8 men were badly injured, 2 subsequently died, 1 was paralysed for life. And it starts to get dreadfully unpleasant. Now, I have to run a Geordie story together with this, because at the same time all of that was happening, the keel men on the river, because we're on the Keelman's Way here. Why is it called Keelman's Way? I'll explain. It's because it's all part of this story. The keel men, do you know what the keel men were? Because you're a Geordie, you're supposed to know all of this stuff.
Well, obviously something to do with boating, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The keel is the depth of the boat.
Right.
And there's a lot of shallows in the Tyne. So when you were bringing coal up the river, you had to do it on keel boats. Right. And the keel boats were very shallow, and they'd come through the shallows with the coal to the deeper water where the collier ships were, and you'd fill the collier ships with coal, and then the keel men would go back to get more coal through the shallows. That's how it worked. When did it start on the Tyne? Moving coal by the keel men. And remember the story, the keel.
Yeah. My laddie's on 1800s?
1142, 1142, and it ended in 1897. So a good 800 years of amazing hard grafters river, proper grafters river. So this man, whose name you never guess, living in this part of the world, his name was Geordie. And he used to be a keelman. Now this is 1915, so it's 16, 17 years after the keelmen finished. Now the keelmen at the time, they had a massive reputation and they were very proud of what they did. Problem is, if you can't be, it's like being a late night phone-in host. What do you do when there's no radio anymore? Yeah. You've got to move on, you've got to find something else to do. So this keelman, very, very proud, decided, stuff it. I'm going to get any job I can. So he came back down here to the river that he worked all his life, and he got a job as a watchman, kind of early doors security on the shipyard. And he was guarding the HMS Scarab from these gets that were just robbing them blind. And his son was a close friend of the man who was paralysed from the scaffolding. And they all hated, they knew it was Albie, they knew it was Albie doing this. So, bottom line is, one night, the keelman, whose nickname, whose full name, everybody knew him as Geordie the Keeler. He was a keelman, but they didn't give him his full title. Geordie the Keeler guarded the place, and things changed. Fewer people got in. He was doing his job thoroughly. And then the crunch. One night, he's walking along this trail. Remember that all of these buildings are in operation. They're all built in the ships piled up and lined up along this whole trail. And then eventually, he catches hold of Albie. He gets him on the ground, and all he can remember is the fact that his son's best friend is going to be lying in a bed for the rest of his life. So he gives him a hammering, and he goes too far. He starts stamping on his back, and it looks like if he hasn't killed him, it's not going to be long before Albie's dead. So what he did was he got hold of some tarpaulin and found a long lump of wood just lying by the side of the river. He tied Albie to it. This is a 13-year-old boy, battered, bruised, unable to move, just moaning and screaming. Tied him to this piece of wood, wrapped tarpaulin around him so it looked just like it's driftwood, waited till the tide was going out, pushed the young boy. And the thing that makes this just a very cool story is the very last keel ever to be launched on the River Tyne was a 13-year-old scroat called Albie.
Right. Yeah.
Sent out to sea. His body was never found. His family came to the shipyard looking for him, knowing where he used to rob. Everybody just kept it quiet. But he was launched into the river, not necessarily here, but somewhere along this bank. And ever since then, this path that had another name, it was called something like Albion Row, became... What?
Isn't that weird that you just said that? Look.
Oh, look, there you go. Floating on the river, we've got a... And you see how the tide's taking it slowly out to sea?
It's like a log, isn't it? It's like a...
Hey, this is the River Tyne, there'll be a few logs in there, Kenny.
Yeah, but there's not others anywhere else, look.
It's just appeared. Can you imagine a young lad strapped to that, drowning? Horrific. But this path now is called Keelman's Way. And it's said that Albie's ghost is supposed to walk along here. Geordie the Keeler's ghost and the ghosts of other... What was that, Kenny?
It's just weird, that I thought.
The ghosts of others are said to walk up this track.
Kenny, your camera's looking down. You need to put it in the middle of your jacket, I think. It's just looking at the floor.
It's going to be easier to carry it, isn't it?
Do you think?
Yep, I was just press here.
Yeah.
Might stay there.
Well, of course it will. That's fine.
As long as I'm looking for you, I was looking at the floor. That's all.
Do you want to go ahead so you're picking up the night vision?
It's got to look in the air now.
Do you think?
Oh, that's better. No, it was looking ahead more. It was looking at the...
If it's high, just pull your zip down a bit further. So along this trail, there have been sightings. There were more sightings around 1922 to 1929. And then I presume things got so iffy here that, because we were then into a major depression, so. But it was weird how we got voices coming from like dense woodland that wouldn't have been here at the time, because this is relatively new wood. You can see none of the boughs or the trunks of the trees are particularly wide. And through the trees you can see the remnants of some of the old buildings. When we get a bit further along, you'll see them more clear. There you go. You see that through? Can you pick that up on your camera, Tony?
I think so.
The fact that there's...
A wall or something.
For sure. Yeah. It's weird that we're south of the Tyne, but we can still hear dogs barking in Walker.
What was that?
I have no idea.
What the hell was that?
Did you hear that? That was not quiet. That was like a gunshot.
That was like a gunshot. Are you kidding me? What the hell was it?
That was cool. We'll have more of that, please.
That was like a
That woods make you want to go in them,
it does, doesn't it?
I think.
Proper witchy wood. Like, let's walk through there and see what we'll find.
We absolutely could. Problem is we've got a place to suss. We've got a whole building to cover. We're heading to a building, and I did promise you a couple of stories from outside. There's another one further up here. We come to a street called, is it Cromwell Street or Cromwell Way? Cromwell Street, I think.
Cromwell Street, yeah.
Cromwell Street. On Cromwell Street, it used to be a hovel, really. They were just tatty, dirty little buildings that they weren't houses, they were just rooms. And hundreds of people that worked on the river set up their home there. Many of them had the worker and his wife and their mum and dad, and sometimes her mum and dad and granny and grandma, all living together in one place because people couldn't afford to have properties of their own. And it's the tragic story of a man called Alec Turnbull, because there used to be a glass, like a bottle plant down here, a bottle factory. And one day there was a massive disaster at the, I've got a scream to my left, did you hear that?
Just here? What, like across the river?
Yeah, it could have been across the river. Just worth bringing it to your attention. And if you pick up anything while you're at home, just you make sure that you screenshot it or get a time and we will check it out. Because the last time even Tony was with us, he was in the cannon, and you heard that grunt, didn't you, Tony? Yeah, clear as day. But Alec Turnbull and his 13-year-old son were working on the lane making bottles. Now, for those of you that are old enough to know, or maybe you're just a fan of visiting antique shops, Kenny, you'll have seen them. You know these bottles that you get that have a ball bearing in the top, they'll have a little marble in the top, so that if you tip them upside down, the marble blocks the hole so you don't lose your drink. Well, they were the bottles they were making, the old green ones. And they do now, absolutely. Some of them go to like banks of rivers like the Tyne, and they dig through the silt looking for them. But look at this is amazing. Have to say, this is impressive. I hope you're picking this up nice and pretty, Tony. It's amazing. So Alec tried to get his son in so that the son was earning too. He's only 13. And he and 3 of his friends, because it took 5 people to operate a line apparently in the bottle factory. And there was a massive explosion where molten glass just exploded in the factory, blinding all 5 of them. And Alec and his son were blinded, therefore they couldn't work anymore. So what they did was they gave them a pension. This was back in, I believe the date, it was 1800s, and it was something like 1883, and then in 1884 they closed the bottle plant. Now that meant that Alec and his son got paid a pension for their injuries off the bottle plant, but the bottle plant's now not in operation, so they get no money. And that meant they couldn't afford to buy food, they couldn't afford to buy anything to keep their hovel warm. And the pair of them were found frozen to death in their home in February of the following year. So it's actually kind of this time of year. Now we're told we're due to get snow over the next 24. And I like to think that there'll be nobody freezing to death on that street. But their ghosts are also said to walk along here, because apparently to get down to the bottle plant, which was roughly here, and certainly along here, they had to come down Keelman's Row. And it only became Keelman's Row because of Geordie the Keeler, who was such a beloved character from the other story. So I just think the whole thing together really adds up. The interesting thing about the bar we're going to is its name. It's the Cricketers pub, Quay. If you want to come along, it's a lovely pub. Come on down, and it's kind of family, isn't it? Now, not my family. It was your family, G.
It is, yeah. It's a family pub. It's been Michael McCallum's had it for 6 years.
McCallum. Albie McCallum.
I know. When you said McCallum, I was like, I can't believe it.
He's the kid from the.
He's called Michael McCallum. Who
Oh man! Did you not think of that when you were saying that, or did you?
I didn't want to say anything.
No.
That's the second pub
Yeah.
that something like that's happened to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Michael McCullum had the pub for 6 years.
Wow.
Family run. He lives upstairs,
Uh-huh.
and it's been there for, well, forever.
Have they got stories attached to it? Any ghosty habnabs, or
Well-
they don't know?
Things happen when they're in the cellar. When his daughter Catherine is cashing up, sometimes she'll hear a noise or a tap will move.
Right.
She'll put something somewhere,
Yeah.
and it'll just disappear.
Right.
That's why they didn't want to be part of it tonight, because they're too scared already.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much they know about their own pub. Do they know all the names that it used to have? Do you know the original name?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on. Well, it was called the Cromwell for a while because it's close to Cromwell Road. It was also known as the Board for a while. And hang on, there's a few. The Board, the Quay Inn, and the original name of it was from back in the early 1800s. It was called the Scratching Board. Now, but this is interesting because why would you call something the Scratching Board? And then you go back looking at how we use words. Have you ever heard of somebody getting a job from scratch?
Yeah, of course.
I've got a job from scratch. I'm starting from scratch. You heard people say, I'm scratching for a new job.
Right. Yeah.
And now what they used to do was they'd have scratching boards, especially near heavy industry. Right. They'd put a board in the middle of a village or outside a tavern, and anybody that needed anybody would come to the board, write down, I need a riveter, a welder, a fitter, a carpenter or whatever. Yeah. You'd put it on the board. People would come down there every day for a job, and they'd get it from, they'd start from scratch.
That was like a pre-job centre, wasn't it?
It's exactly what it was. And there was one here, outside the scratching board in. And of course, you get a better look at the town where Tony is at the moment. I love all of this. I'm sorry, but I'm just a fan of detail. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. Nice. Apart from the graffiti. Yeah. We're doing this? You sure? Okay.
Are we doing the house?
No, we don't want to show the house, do we? Because we don't want the person who has the house, we don't want the person who has the house to get frightened, because apparently they are. And the people around me know whose house that is. And they haven't moved in yet. Does that give you a clue? Good luck. Because it is close to the house where they froze to death, so we're not going to point out the house anything beyond that. Now this behind us is the Cricketers. Fabulous bar. Everybody's just finishing up and we're just about to begin. So now, is this where Joe grew up?
No, it's not, no. Our dad's only had it for about 6-7 years.
Right, right.
It's where our dad lives now, but...
Gotcha. Nice, and I think we've just hit it probably timed right. So there you go. And you see, they've put their own notice boards outside, and it makes you wonder where the original one was here. I'm thinking it's probably here, you know, because you got to remember there was no such thing as cars. Yeah. So it was probably opposite the tavern. No, absolutely. And incidentally, do you want to film the house or not, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, are we going to tell a story of it?
I just have on the track.
All right. I'll just do from a distance.
Not the same houses from back then. They were much cheaper and rougher. But I think we're here and probably set to get ready and get inside, Tony, shall we?
Yeah, and have a word with the landlord.
Absolutely. And what's his name?
Michael.
Michael. Michael, of course it is. Makes you wonder if he had any people up his, because how far back are we
He's
talking?
a big family as well. He's one of 11.
So the chances are, you
He
know,
used to live up here, just behind here.
that's where the
He
McCallums
used to live
live.
across the road at the top here, and he's one of 11.
It's-
And his mum and dad were one of probably about 11 as well. Massive family.
So the chances are,
He might knew Albie.
well, he wouldn't know him,
No,
but,
he wouldn't know him, but
yeah, but in the family. What's it? Good gracious. So we actually think inadvertently, now this is the second pub in a row
Yeah.
that we've done,
Same thing happened. Cannon.
because when we did the Cannon, we discovered the ghost was actually the father of the person who allowed us to go in,
no.
which is like, and we got all the names right and all the bang, bang,
Sister.
bang, bang.
Granddaughter.
Everybody.
Everything.
What he
all the way
did,
through.
what he wore.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
That was like that.
the fact that we've got a story about a young kid called McCallum, and I didn't even know the guy's, no disrespect, but I didn't know the gentleman's Christian name who allowed us in here. And then you discover his surname just happens to be the name of the child that was wrapped in a tarpaulin and essentially murdered.
Just there.
Just there. Oh, come on then. Let's get in. Hang on, ladies first.
Oh, thank
Old
you very
school, come on.
much.
Yeah, there's still people in. Oh, at least it's warm.
You can even chat up here while people go out.
Yeah, that's sure, of course.
I'm just going to go get the other camera.
You got new night lights or?
No, it's because the other ones are in the back of the car, which are...
Oh, dear.
We know we've still got enough stuff.
Right.
Everything's here.
Right. Right, let's get with.
This is our old school's one.
Right, okay. We'll probably not need the lights, I would have thought, even when all the lights are out here. So when do you, let's make a point, next time we go anywhere, we'll record that other thing too, that we've got a secret plan going. Kenny, do you want to put your lamp out?
Yeah. Is it still alive?
Okay, yeah, we're still live, I understand. Do you want to take your lamp off and put it in the or just leave them down the side there. Let's set the place up. Let's right. It's all good. So I'm going to put Suki. Suki's on. Right. Do you want to set the bowls? All we're doing is just getting as ready as we can so that we can begin as quickly as we can. Yes, please. That'll be great. Is everybody gone? Okay. Brilliant. Happy days. Well, it might be you, so.
I've actually fell down the hatch before.
That I can believe. Right, get me amp out too. All good. Yeah, that's the joy, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Yeah, well...
Just setting a trap or two.
pod. We haven't had for a while.
Yeah, good. Whoa.
And this as well.
Right. I thought I just made that happen, and I'm thinking, that's amazing what I've just done there.
So where the REM pods would go. Which is
Alright.
a haunted place. You reckon?
I'd say like cellar.
Please put it on the corner. Put that over.
There you go. Just make sure, Kenny, before I go, that I take all these back. There you go. There's 3 set, Kenny. That one there's already moving. Tony. You got the balls? Great.
He's having a chat with you. So.
Right, let's do it. Oh, hang on, we switch this off. Yes, please. Right, we're fully armed at the moment. Sucky's on. So, where have you stocked them, Ken?
Right, I've got one there,
Right,
one on the table,
right,
right,
uh-huh.
one on that table, one there, and I'm going to put 2 through the other one.
Put one on the stool, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got 4, so... Oh, look. It's already going.
Oh, and that's the one that's dying.
But that just went. He's been miles away from it. We should put this in the main bar rather than everything around here, maybe. Right. Put that there. Right. Feels nice in here, but it's you're still feeding off the atmosphere of what was happening before, aren't you, really? And this is horseshoe shaped, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the main ghost story in this place is about 2 dead people that walked through the middle of this place in 1934.
Lovely.
Happy days. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you playing? Are you with us tonight? Or?
Can do, yeah.
If you want, that's good. Right.
So the cellar's behind the boards over here.
All right. Where is it? Just down there. Great. So are we talking to Michael, or we don't have to? It's up.
Gone upstairs. I think he's a little bit drunk, a little bit wasteful way.
Oh, that's all right then. Do you want to chat about it? Because
I don't really know anything about the book, to be fair, but
really, okay. Do we or don't we? Have you heard any stories from anybody about anything that's here?
one of our locals was just sat there before, and he said he was sat in here with a group of lads in a bit of a lock-in situation.
Yeah.
And they could hear banging coming from upstairs.
Uh-huh.
And one of the friends apparently ran and dived up under the pool table. The other 2 went upstairs thinking, big I am, I'm going to go and have a look. There was nothing, no one was living upstairs at the time.
Right.
It wasn't owned by us then, it was, you're talking a good 100 years ago maybe, I don't know.
Right, right.
So you're talking a while ago, but, well, not 100 years ago, wouldn't have been, would it? Probably.
Well, it could be, because this place has been here a long time, you know.
Yeah.
Not as the cricketers, but
Yeah, it was been different things, hasn't it?
yeah, we've worked out, we've seen the names and what people have used this place for. You're in an area that was like workmen, it was people on the river, it was bottle workers, it was, there was a company here called Robson's,
Right.
strangely enough. So these kind of pubs were where those who could afford to drink while they were at work would come for a drink. And you would think, well, that's your common man. And it wasn't really, because they didn't have enough money to do it. It was the slightly higher up the ladder folk that would come to places like this, which leads to one of the great stories of this place. But let's sit down, talk about it, and we'll see. I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll move Sucky Suck.
Would you want to explain who Sucky is?
Let me just explain.
There's also a story of Ethel that Jules knows about.
Oh,
These are all
tell us,
pictures
come.
of the pub around the outside.
Gotcha.
It's not about ghosts or anything, but
Right.
Ethel, so she is this little, it was a family-run business.
Right.
Ethel's she passed away not long ago.
Right.
And she used to have a chalkboard on the back. So
Right.
when the lads had come up from the shipyards from working,
Uh-huh.
come in here and give some of their wages.
Right.
And that allowed them to have a chalk of how many pints they would have.
Oh, I see, like a slate.
Yeah.
Right.
And then obviously they would take the rest of their money home
Uh-huh.
for the wives to go and buy food and pay
Right,
the
yeah,
bills.
of course, the important stuff.
But they had a little slate that they would tick off their pints.
That's lovely.
She passed away not long ago. She just lived local as well.
And she was close to this place.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a family run.
And her name's Ethel.
Yeah, Ethel Burdis.
Ethel Burdis. Nice. Right, well, let's grab a seat.
Do you want to explain Sucky?
Yes, I will, but I can do it from the seat.
right.
It's on.
Is he?
Sucky's on. For those of you that don't know, Sucky is a new member of our team, and essentially he's a garden gnome that a certain Kenny D thought the perfect birthday present for Alan this year is a vampiric gnome that I knew right from the beginning that I would never use. So then I had a conversation with the boffin, and the boffin instantly said, I said, would it be possible for you to maybe rig him so that he could turn himself into a machine? And Richard has put in 3 levels, so it's going to respond to spiritual activity at 3 separate vibrations. So far, and we've only been in here, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Yeah. So far, we've had one of our balls lighting up in the far corner of the other side of the room. We've already had that happening. We've already got a bizarre link to your dad's family, which your family. And it was unlikely, but it involves a murder that was never reported from down by the river that indirectly led to the Keelman's Way being called the Keelman's Way. Why was it called the Keelman's Way? That's all the stories connected, so you'll be able to catch up with that. However,
Alan didn't know your dad's surname.
I didn't know who his first name was, let alone his second name.
Never.
No, so this Albie character is one of your lot, anyway. But the story from here, if you want the ghost story, there's 2. There's one of a young girl called Mary Stewart, who was murdered on this street, and apparently the man responsible for committing, there's links to 3 murders here, which is wonderful. I mean, it didn't happen here.
Thank God.
Didn't happen here. Oh, and there he is. It's, maybe your tests come through. See if you're clear after all this time. Anyway, the big story of this bar, the one that I liked the best, was 1934, and it's in the Farmer's Almanac of Gateshead. And the story goes, and I'm going to get the words slightly wrong, but apparently a girl who used to work behind the bar and her daughter disappeared in 1934. And her name was Mary, the daughter I know was Alison, Janet Quay, it's hard getting all the names right, Janet Quay and her 14-year-old daughter Alison. And she started bringing in young Alison, who was a very sparkly, pretty girl, to work with her behind the bar. And everybody loved her and probably fancied her a bit because she was just coming into the first bloom. And in this Farmer's Almanac, it said that in 1934, in September, the entire bar, the entire horseshoe bar, and this is horseshoe shaped, isn't it? So it's the horseshoe bar on Joel's Terrace. Joel's Terrace. So it's this pub. The entire horseshoe bar witnessed the figures of Janet Quay and her daughter Alison, who walked through the horseshoe bar from one side, came in the front door, walked all the way around and went out of the front door again. They were completely grey-green, covered with blood. Everybody in the bar at first thought it was some kind of joke or trick, and then they realised that maybe it wasn't, and they all raced to the front door to see where they'd gone, and they'd disappeared. But this is a magazine that was run by the church, so they wouldn't put that in unless everybody must have seen this thing. So they had to mention it. Otherwise, they absolutely wouldn't have mentioned it. But they walked through the bar, 1934. The year that this place opened, 1828? Nah, that's not the right date. Could be 28. No, it was later than that. Anyway, no, I've got it. 1868. This place opened in 1868. The interesting thing, well, what happened in history in 1868? Come on, you're a producer, you know these. 1868 was the year that the British government decided that executions would no longer be public. 1868, on the day that this pub opened, this is just an ironic thing rather than anything else. On the day that it opened, this place celebrated the end of public executions. 7 years later to the day, a man called John Anderson was in this pub, and the police came in and arrested him. There was a massive fight. 2 police were injured. They carted him off. They took him into Newcastle. He was a lad from Benwell, as am I. And 2 hours earlier, before he came here to hide and have a drink, he'd stabbed his wife in the eye. And he was the first man to be executed after the end of hanging in the northeast. He was hanged in Newgate prison. And because people were so used to going to hangings, 5,000 people stood outside the jail wanting to get in, wanting to see, wanting to witness it, because you got to remember back then they would run up to the hanging body and take a souvenir, cut a nose off, cut a penis off, cut a finger off. I've got a souvenir. So, you know, we think we haven't become terribly sophisticated throughout history. We really haven't. So there's 2 links, and there's a third one, because the only murder from back then in Quay, the only murder registered in the village at the time, was a little girl who was found in the wasteland just down here after a man called Nicholson, William Nicholson, was said to have, she was 7, was said to have raped, murdered, cut her throat, battered her face in, tried to hide her under dirty old bottles from the bottle factory. So we don't know who's here. We're going to find out. We don't know what's here, but Sucky hasn't gone off. A ball in a corner has. We've had a tweak. I'm going to go and I'm going to do one circuit with the necromancer, and we're going to find out.
Time to split the stream as well.
Already? We haven't started? No. Hell's teeth. Now, we're going to split the screen, which means if you want to become a supporter, please do, because if you do, you get all of our ghost hunts for over 2 years and all the extra bits that we do. 3 years. Hell's teeth, doesn't time fly? 3 years. So it's about 80 pence a week, so it's not going to bust you. If you can manage, come and join us. How do they do it, Tony?
Yeah, there's a link in the video description. So just hit that, become a supporter, and part 2 will be there for you.
There you go. So let's go and do the do. Right, we're going to necromancer around. We're at the part 2. Unbelievable. Oh, hello.
Oh, it's on your camera's only one on at the minute.
Right.
The ball's firing here.
That light just went off, yeah.
Oh, the light here as well just went off.
Just been going off.
This one's still going.
Your Sucky's just gone off.
Now, apparently, which side was it? Do you know which side?
It's only your camera that's on at the minute.
That one?
Just
If it's that one, there's a spirit in the building, apparently. If this one goes off, and it's like owly eyes, Richard tells me that if there's a spirit actually physically here, it needs to be within like 2 to 3 feet of it if this other one goes off. This one's just picking up spirit energy. So that's
camera because that was.
Yeah, I'm just changing the battery on this one.
right. Okay. So anyway, that if you wondered what the difference was between the two, that's it. So let me necromance, see if we can pick up any voices of any description.
Has it gone off again?